everybody to Bootcamp 2025. We are so excited to have you here for our new and improved version of Bootcamp, where we want you guys to jump into the action with us. We are going to be modeling and showcasing for you how to do each step of putting together a full, complete spread so that you guys can feel comfortable with the whole process from start to finish, and we're going to break it down step by step for you.
First of all, let's talk about what you're going to need to make this all happen. First of all, you're going to need probably some kind of a device to record on. You're going to need probably some, if you have a writer's notebook, that'd be great, pens, paper, that kind of thing as you go through the interview. And is there anything else they need?
That should all be good. That's really all you need for this first part, and your brain. Bring your creative mind. Yes.
And your willingness to really search for this story that you're going to write. That's going to be something you want to see in the 2026 yearbook.
That's right. So what we want to do, what we started to do here was I chose Jim as my partner. Okay, and Jim and I are going to, in theory, do a story about each other. And that's what we want you guys to do. We want you to find a partner in class, and we want you to do a profile on them. And that's going to be the goal this week and throughout this bootcamp process, is to create a spread about your partner, getting to know them, get to figure something out about them. And so the first part of doing that is interviewing them and trying to find a story that you think is a story worth telling in yearbook spread. Let's get started. So Jim is my buddy. He's my partner for this process for bootcamp. And so we had to start with the interview. Interview is everything for coming up with all the content that you need to build this spread. So I started with just putting together a list of a bunch of random questions. Now, keep in mind, your partner might be somebody that you've never met before. They might be new on yearbook staff and you have no idea who they are. And so you're going to try to get to know them. Or it might be somebody that you've worked with forever and they're your best friend, like Jimothy here. And so I already know a ton about Jim, but I started still with some general questions just to get the ball rolling, just to see what we could uncover. So I started, and I always am a proponent of starting with a tell me question. So I believe we started with some questions about, like, tell me about some hobbies that you have. Tell me about some things that are going on in your life currently. And Jim started talking about his granddaughter, Hazel Pearl, and started talking about some of that other stuff. But then he got into talking about some cycling that you've been doing. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Jim?
Yeah. And one of my hobbies, the thing I love to do, is ride my bike. And once Sabrina found that little nugget, I think that's where she decided she wanted to go with it. And it kind of was good because I was actually doing a ride while she was interviewing me. And so that really helped. It really helped her get good information. And that's an important thing, is you want to get something that's fresh, something that's happening right now at the moment, that your person is going to have a lot to talk about.
As we started talking about stuff, it just became a conversation. It was the art of hanging out. We just kind of started talking about his cycling and the ride that he was in the middle of. It was a week-long ride. So we started asking a lot of questions about that. We even spent some time talking about his past with running, with running marathons and everything else. And so there was a lot of stuff that came from the interview that was stuff that was helpful to know, but probably was never going to make it in the story, but you're just trying to get to know the person. So sometimes that's okay. Like, it was good to learn about that background, even though we kind of saw that the story was going to go in this direction of cycling. And this was a phone interview. Jim was on his ride in Iowa and I was in Georgia. So I called him and we did the interview over the phone, and I recorded the interview on my phone. And then it created a note for me that transcribed the entire interview. So not only did I have the recording I could go back to, but then I had the entire interview transcribed. So when I sat down to really look through everything, I had everything right there in front of me that I could kind of dig through and kind of figure out from our conversation, what did I really want this story to be about?
And we were on a phone call and we discovered this. We didn't know this. In the upper left-hand corner of an iPhone, there's a little icon that you click on in a phone interview that it records it automatically. The important thing I also want to emphasize here is you need to do your interview in person with the person if possible.
And as I was interviewing too, I always try to interview with the story in mind. So I was looking for facts, things that would help me write good transition sentences, and things that I might want to use for a lead, for a hook, a way to get the story started. So I was looking for those pieces of information, but I was also looking for things that were more emotional, because that's what we want for our really good quotes in a story.
So how did you find the angle, the focus? Because I mean, literally with a ride like this or an interest in cycling like I have, you could have written books, on kind of a thing. So this idea of narrowing, how did you do that? And what did you land on as the focus?
I was going back through things. There was one thing that immediately stuck out to me. So look for that when you're interviewing. Is there something that makes you go, "Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know that." And there was one thing he said, that he had not completed this ride the last time he tried it, because he had heat stroke and it was really hot and it was, really, really hard. And so he wasn't able to finish it. And so he went into this race knowing that he had some like unfinished business to resolve. And I was like, I didn't know that. Like, that's kind of interesting. There's a motivation there. So that piqued my interest. And then if you know Jim, he's a people person. And so he really talked about all the relationships he was building. So I walked away from that, especially after going back and looking through everything. There were some things that like piqued my interest during the interview that made me curious and excited. It wasn't just about cycling in general, and it wasn't just about Jim and cycling. We wanted a really small, narrow angle to be able to tell this specific story through. And so the people and the unfinished business part were kind of those two angles that I thought either one of these might have some potential for a story. And then from that, you want to find that specific angle of the topic you really want to write about. We want you to write out your interview questions. They might be kind of vague and broad at first, but write as many as you can think of and then keep them open-ended. And then we want you to conduct your interview, talk to your person, ask the questions, have that conversation, get as much information as you can. And then after you're done with the interview, go back, look at your interview notes, examine what you've uncovered, and decide what is the angle of the story I'm going to write. So when you're done here today, we want you to accomplish those three things. You will have written your open-ended interview questions, you'll have conducted your interview with your partner, and you will have found and uncovered the angle that you want to write your story in. Okay, so interview questions, actual interview, story angle. That's what we want you to accomplish today.